Rob Thomas with Club Resort Business, and welcome to another episode of Club Resort Talks. Today's episode is sponsored by Peacock and Lewis, a premier club amenities design firm with a rich history of designing award-winning clubs of distinction. From the first clubhouse in 1961, the team has built an impressive record of achievement in private club master planning, architecture, and interior design. Learn more at peacockandlewis.com. Now, let's get to Phil Karen, our senior editor. Phil, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Rob. How are you?
Fantastic. No complaints. What have you been seeing in the news? A lot of stuff going on.
There has been. It's been pretty busy this past week. I'm going to start it off with a fun story that we had this week out in the Pacific Northwest at Alderbrook Golf and Yacht Club in Union, Washington. We had not one, not two, but three golfers got a hole-in-one on the same hole on the same afternoon, which was pretty amazing. Richard Ives, Randy Shelton, Kieran Collins all recorded a hole-in-one on the sixth hole at the club. I was just looking that up before we came on. Depending on which tee they're using, the hole is anywhere from 153 to 176 yards, par three. The head pro there at the club said the odds of that happening in one afternoon, he looked it up, was 27 trillion to 1. I'll take his word for it. That sounds probably about right. That's pretty amazing. I guess I've probably heard stories of two people getting a hole-in-one on the same hole same day, but three is a very unique event for sure.
27 trillion to 1. I'll tell you what. That's no joke. 150 plus yards to 170 plus.
Yes.
It's not like it's 100 yards with a funnel going into the hole. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Well, I'd like to hear from the superintendent about that pin placement. Has that, traditionally been a hot spot for aces, or is just like some random out of the blue 27 trillion to 1? Oof.
Yeah, I know. That's actually would be interesting to know whether that's a common hole for them to have a hole-in-one on. Which led me to a thought, Rob. Have you ever had a hole-in-one?
I've not. No, there was a 3-week period where I stopped within 2 inches of the cup 3 separate times.
Really?
So close. So I just figured one of those was going to fall in. I've been playing for 35 years now. No aces. So how about you?
Not me. I've probably I was trying to think about that. I've certainly come within a few feet. I don't think I've not been less than a foot from the cup. I've certainly been within 5 feet, perhaps 4 feet, somewhere in there. But speaking of somebody related to me, though, my father actually did get a hole-in-one, and I was recalling as before we came on here. I'm pretty sure this summer is the 40th anniversary of it. I think Dad got the hole-in-one on the country club I grew up at. It's the 8th hole. Speaking of short distances, it is, if I recall right, it's 90 yards. So you have, hit kind of like a, I don't know, 3/4 of a wedge or something up to it. And actually, I missed it. I didn't play golf. That was probably one of the few days I didn't play golf with him. It was just him and my mom went out and played. And yep, he got the hole-in-one. I'm pretty sure it was 1983. So
Congratulations, Dr. Karen.
Yes, how about that? 40 years. He doesn't even, honestly, Dad doesn't even play anymore. I don't even realize he probably hasn't played in a decade. And honestly, hats off to him. He mostly played golf because it was something to do with his son, who did want to play golf, right? So
that's fantastic.
He's the one that has the hole-in-one on me. I might have been the better player when we were playing most of the time, but he's got the hole-in-one and I do not.
Yeah.
So that's all.
That brings an interesting debate. Online is always here. If you get an ace on a par 3 course, does that count? Does that count as a hole-in-one? I mean, if it's a hole-in-one, but you get 9 shots at it or 18 shots at it, does that count as opposed to a traditional 18-hole golf course where you get maybe 4 shots?
Right. And indeed, as I don't know if I've mentioned on the podcast, but I think that course I grew up at was a par 3 golf course. Actually, there was one par 4, but it was still kind of considered a, what do you call it, executive par 3 course kind of thing. So
I'm giving your dad credit. A hole-in-one's a hole-in-one to me.
That's what I think too. Certainly. Yep.
Now, maybe if you play the same hole 100 times in a day as some kind of a stunt and you get an ace, maybe that doesn't count. I don't know.
Yes.
But it's still pretty hard to do.
But my dad wouldn't have been like that. You play the hole once and, you move on to the next hole and all that. He certainly wouldn't have tried a stunt.
Good for him.
Yeah, good stuff. But anyways, other news this week. I was thinking too, the nice thing is I'm noticing a lot of work being done at clubs, old clubs that were shut down or courses that were shut down or reopening again. Um, it's nice because I feel like we're knock on wood here. I'm hoping we're in a sort of a post-COVID phase here. We were in, COVID, as we know, kind of shut down the world and shut down everything. And in our world, of course, that meant not a whole lot was happening with clubs and golf courses. But as I noticed, Detroit Golf Club, they finished some restorations last month, and just in time for they are now hosting the Rocket Mortgage Classic this weekend, actually, as we're recording here. Second phase of the project just finished last month. That was $4.3 million. It's a renovated dining area on the second floor of the clubhouse, also a new women's locker room. That's a follow up then to the first phase was in 2019, $4.5 million. New pro shop, redesigned main dining room, patio overhaul, and facade improvements. So, and it's also that story I'm mentioning talked about how business has really taken off at the club um, since the club started hosting Rocket Mortgage Classic. They've seen a boost in revenue, increase in members. Um, Great to see. At the same time, though, that story was also noting it was kind of an interesting story because it's also mentioning they had some struggles, had the storm knocked down some trees, and then unfortunately they also unfortunately had some vandalism at their course, um, which actually resulted in the course officials deciding to resod that area as well. But overall, great news for them uh, coming out of things and hosting the Rocket Mortgage Classic again too.
Yeah, golf was one of the few things that was first allowed to take place during COVID, as we were in the midst of it. And a lot of courses and clubs, private clubs, have benefited from that. And we're seeing the fruits of all those extra golfers right now with the capital expenditures. It's good news, and hopefully the level of play continues to at least maintain and not start slipping again as it was 5 years ago.
Right, right. And indeed, when I was mentioning about COVID, I was talking more about, well, and you said that the big work being done at courses and everything. As we know, yes, play itself was doing quite well because it was one of the early activities that people could continue doing or start up doing during the pandemic. Um, the other one, a new facility is being constructed in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Mapleton Golf Club. And I guess there was a big step this week on that. The city council in Sioux Falls and the county commission voted to rezone 210 acres of land to allow for construction of the club. Um, Work could start as soon as later this year or spring of 2024. As I understand it, that obviously golf is going to be the main amenity at the club. Spaces will also feature some lodging as well as a restaurant and bar. So great seeing all this news about clubs, getting some big projects done. And from what I've been able to tell too, it seems like we're not really even concentrated in one part of the country. I've seen news throughout Northeast, South, out West, Midwest, Pacific Northwest. Seems to be everywhere, which is good to see.
Yeah, fantastic. It's nationwide and good for Sioux Falls.
I know. How about that? So I have an old friend I grew up with who lives in South Dakota. Maybe he can visit that place. I believe he lives fairly close to Sioux Falls too, if I'm not mistaken. So
Give you a good excuse to go visit the club and your friend.
that's right. How about that?
I'll tell you what. One bit of news that I'd seen is Capstone Hospitality recently did a secret shopper case study, and which they went to, or they contacted 100 different private clubs, ranging over from $2,500 initiation fee to $120,000 initiation fee. So I mean, high end, entry level, whatever. And they were looking for membership information, and they found some really interesting stats. I think it was 26% of the clubs they reached out to didn't even respond, which is shocking. This was all done by email or by the club's online information form. So it was right there. A good portion of them responded within 2 hours, which is ideal. I think 23% within 2 to 6 hour window, and 9.5% took about 1 to 3 days. That's a lot in this society of quick, and people want information and they want it quickly. Only 8.1% made an effort to reach out to Capstone, and they did under the guise of secret shopper, not, hey, this is Capstone Hospitality. Under the guise of being a secret shopper and a potential member, only 8.1% reached back out to them after the initial contact, meaning, hey, you know, these are our fees, you know, our monthly fees, here's our initiation fee. And then that was it. So 92% of the clubs just kind of let it go after that point and put the ball in the secret shopper's court. And of course that, you know, they're not going to reach back out. So bit shocking. They said that we're getting back to the levels of like 4 years ago as far as membership leads go. So it's not as exciting as it was the last 2-3 years with COVID. Memberships are harder to come by, or leads are harder to come by. And Capstone found that these clubs, at least these 100 clubs that they reached out to, are not necessarily doing a great job of following up on those leads. So I don't know, maybe that's something they had some in the article. It's on our website, clubandresortbusiness.com. They have some tips to maybe avoid this kind of stuff. And I encourage all clubs to read this, whether you are actively following up on your leads or you fall into this 90% that kind of let it go by the wayside. So I don't know. Good news and bad news, I suppose. There is some good news in the article. It's not all doom and gloom.
Right. But yeah, I agree. I agree with your word there. Shocking. It is shocking that so many clubs didn't do any further follow up after the initial contact. Because I mean, really, I would think, I mean, in any type of business, that's what you want to do, is to make sure you're continuing the follow up process with somebody who's interested in, you know, in doing business with you per se. So
yeah, seems like common sense.
It is, yeah. And I think it'd be great. People go to clubandresortbusiness.com and look at the tips offered there. Be helpful to clubs. Wondering too if it almost seems like kind of a good reminder for people as we are kind of, it seems like we're getting more back on track to, I hate to use the word normalcy, but I'm not sure what the other word is, that back to normal, especially compared to our last few years, might be a good reminder to people just about, as you said, it is kind of common sense, if you will. But I know we've been in the last few years in sort of a weird haze of time of unusual things happening. So it might be easy to lose sight of kind of the normal process of doing business again. And now that there seems like, again, an opportunity to do that, that the piece with the secret shopper piece would be a great one for club leaders to take a look at.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, this is a good transition to our guest today, the Broken Sound Club in Boca Raton. I spoke with General Manager and COO Greg Devino. And back in May, if you remember the issue, our cover feature, our club feature was on Broken Sound Club. And they're doing a fantastic job with responding to their members and prospective members. There's a wait list, which is a good thing to have. And but they just come out of a $40 million renovation. So that's what Greg and I talked about. Mostly that, as far as his club goes, but also about what the future holds, not only for Broken Sound Club, but what he sees in the industry, say 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So I look forward to sharing that interview with y'all. So just stay tuned. Hello, I'm Rob Thomas with Club and Resort Business, and today we're speaking with Greg Devino, General Manager, CEO, COO. I just talked to him and I botched it up. Broken Sound Club in Boca Raton, Florida. Greg, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. Happy to be here.
Greg, it was nice to see you again. I spent a little time with you down at the club this spring, and that article appeared in our May issue. Check it out on the website, clubandresortbusiness.com. But please tell us a little bit about your background. It's a little bit more unique. You didn't necessarily come up, you're obviously a hospitality veteran, but you didn't come up through the club ranks as a lot of GMs do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's definitely a unique story. I actually tell it during my orientation when I have my new onboarding sessions for our new employees that come aboard. But I started out in finance. I was a finance major in college and worked for 7 years as a CFA in New York City for a Fortune 100 company. And after my seventh year, I said to myself, is this my passion? And I took a big leap of faith and got into hospitality as a banquet manager. So I went from a financial analyst down to a banquet manager and moved from New York City to Florida. And from there was recruited. That was my first club. It was the Boca Raton Resort and Club at the time, which is now the Boca Raton. Fantastic property. And then I spent about 10 years with the Ritz-Carlton, global team with the Ritz-Carlton and Edition brand, and got to experience hotel openings and transitions, a lot of resort, a lot of city properties. But my wife and I, we moved about 13 times over about 10 years. So a lot of moving, moving and shaking. And finally, I thought about what I wanted to do. And, it came up to me to get down to, long term with the family. And for the family, it was all about getting back to the club business. And I did that with a great first job as a COO at the Glen Ridge Country Club, Northern New Jersey. Fantastic club, overlooked Manhattan skyline. So it was great that we didn't have to move the family. And shortly after that, I got a call from a good friend of mine and said, "Hey, would you want to think about moving down to Florida as a job I just saw open and take a look at it?" So I had a look at it and talked to a mentor or two of mine. They said, "Greg, this job doesn't open up very often, and you should certainly entertain it." And we did, and fantastic, onboarding experience and just understanding, what this club is all about. And Broken Sound is, as you know, Rob, it's seeing it now come to life. It's a remarkable place to be. So we're here now about a year and a half, and lots going on in that first year. So big transition from hotels to clubs, but now I always talk, and it's great to be in the club industry, and I'm super proud to be here.
What do you think you took? Well, I mean, I'm sure you took a lot of experiences from your time at the Ritz.
Yeah.
But what are some of the unique aspects that you've found at the Ritz that you then have taken into your role as a general manager at Broken Sound Club?
Yeah, no, I think for sure. Obviously, luxury services was one of the pillars of it, but I think when working with Ritz-Carlton, in addition, one of my sports set and skill sets there was working with the NBA and NHL. So sports and entertainment were my two segments. So any of the teams that were playing, if I was working in New York, whoever was playing the Knicks and Rangers, I'd be taking care of the opposing teams. So got to learn a lot about logistics and about professional sports. And I think with that, obviously we're hosting the Timber Tech and planning that right now with the PGA. It goes hand in hand from what I used to do. So really looking at 20,000 people coming our way in November, and really looking at tour logistics, food, beverage, setup. It's exactly what I used to do at my old job, and just understanding how to move and shake people around and keep them entertained. And that's what I look forward to in November. But I think, luxury service really sticks out in my mind, and, just really taking care of people. The biggest difference, I'd say that my members are here with me, right? They don't leave. So it's now understanding that I have to take care of their preferences and meet their families and, really get to know them. And that's been what I've been focused on this last year, is getting to know my members. We have 3,400 members. I know when you were down here, Rob, one thing you said was, how do you know everyone's name? I think that was one thing that I learned from the Ritz-Carlton, where you have to remember people's names, and, you tag them with something that you talk about, and, you assimilate with them, and you make that lifelong connection.
Making Mr. and Mrs. Smith feel like they're LeBron James, I suppose, huh?
That's right.
Terrific. Hey, you talked about a lot going on, and you mean a lot happened. We're talking about $40 million renovation. And I mean, it's not stopped, obviously, but we've gotten to a point now where we can take our breath, right?
That's
Talk
right.
about that $40 million renovation.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were down and we just had opened the doors, I think it was the end of March. We opened up March 2nd. For those of you who don't know, South Florida, our high season is in that month. So we opened up with a bang, right from an opening party right to 30 days of 300 plus events, plus 2 new restaurants, plus membership that really hadn't had their clubhouse in a couple of years. So we had a lot in our hands, getting through the certifications and everything from the fire department to all the fun construction things that us general managers go through. But once we opened the doors, just really getting used to the building and how does it work. It took about 45 days or so, and then we finally got our breath for a little bit, and season dwindled down. But I think the team did a fantastic job. We started to learn more about what the members wanted. With 2 new restaurants, you have to really learn what menus work, what doesn't work. But I think what we learn now is really listening to our members, and we got some good feedback sessions, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? We had some really great nights, but some nights that we absolutely failed. And I think we learned a lot more from our failures. And that's how we really curated our menus now. So our menus and services, I think, are really altered to now what the members are looking for.
I'll tell you, I can attest to the beauty and the functionality of that clubhouse. Absolutely gorgeous. And unfortunately, it was a 100-year storm when I was down there, so I couldn't really walk out on the golf courses. But you talked about the Timber Tech and how the old course has recently gone through a renovation as well. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, just at the same time as I got here, the March 2nd was my first day of work, and I actually met with Reese Jones out in that golf course and had the pleasure of working on a project with Reese at Glenridge. So it was nice to see him in the sunnier weather. And he looked at me and said, "Young man, I think you could take that suit off. You're on the golf course now. We're not in New Jersey anymore." And I certainly now know what he meant, because it was a lot of work this last year. We broke ground on the golf course March 2nd, mobilized, and we got the club old course opened up on January 15th. But full, beautiful renovation project with Reese Jones. Did a fantastic job really bringing the course back to its true life, and our members are just blown away by it. We are, right now it's a summer, so it's quieter here, not a lot of rounds out there, but the membership has been overwhelmingly happy about the project. Reese living nearby, it is a pleasure to have him, and Bryce Swanson, who I think is a wizard with the things that he does in that golf course, working with Reese. Those two guys just, I always say to them, it was a second education for me, because, coming from hotels, not knowing too much about agronomy, but by golly, I had the best two leaders to teach me and guide me along the way, along with our team here at the club that helped build the course. But we're happy, we're excited. The PGA agronomist was just here this week. Blake said to our agronomy team that, they're really excited about the course. The growing's going well, and we're, a couple months out. So we're really just getting ready. Working with Ken Kennerly, who's a legend, obviously, as you know, in the golf world from the Honda Classic, and he's our tour director this year and really running the point. So we're excited to get that going, and really great cause here for the city of Boca.
That's terrific. When I got back, I had taken a picture of the clubhouse, and I tweeted it out to Mark Calcavecchia, who was a past champion, and he knew that right away. He knew where I was at.
Yeah,
fantastic. So, hey, lots taking place, and you want to catch your breath a little bit, but there's more coming. What is next in line at Broken Sound Club?
Right now we're in the budget process. So right now in the summer down here, we're kind of looking at our capital reserve, and we just worked forward with club benchmarking, and we're able to get a capital reserve study going. So we're really looking at the property. Those of you who don't know, we are a large property, one of the largest in the country, by the way. We have 1,200 acres, so there's a lot of land. But believe it or not, we don't have much land to build on. So there's not much more that we need to do. We're really looking at a couple projects, a parking project here at the club. With a lot of new members coming in, now that the club's about to turn 35 in November, we have a lot more needs from feasibility. So looking at that as far as traffic studies, getting members to and from safely. So looking at parking, we're looking at, of course, our tennis community is exploding with a great program there. So just got some new pickleball courts, looking at how to maximize those spaces and look at certain areas there. But our spa, salon, just really summer projects right now. We're kind of, we want to give our members a break. Our members have been through a couple of years of, as you saw, a lot of projects. So we are kind of excited to get them in our spaces, get ready for the higher season. And we just found out, it's our members are really full time. We have a lot more members now playing golf in the summer, even though it's hot, but really just getting ourselves ready for the next 5 year, being strategic with it, just thinking about how can we maximize our spaces and, get to know our new building.
Hey, I don't blame them. That's a beautiful course, beautiful property, whether it's high season or low season. Get out there and play some golf, right? It's 97 degrees today. You'd mentioned it's hot. I'm sure you had some golfers out there on the golf course.
Yeah, we did. It's funny. I had a budget meeting earlier. Like, one of my members said to me, "Greg, I've never seen you without a suit on." I said, "Well, golf course is closed for maintenance today. Restaurants closed. We're doing maintenance in there. It's a summer, but we have our other golf course going. It still has a full tee sheet in the morning, so it never stops. It's golf country."
Yeah, bizarre. Hey, let's get your crystal ball out for this question. We're talking about the industry as a whole.
Yep.
5 years, 10 years. What do you see? Obviously, COVID hit us all hard, but it was a bit of a boost for the golf industry, at least. What are you seeing 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road for us as a whole?
Yeah, I was just talking to my old club, my old club president, and the GM who took over my last role at Glenridge. And they're a very different club than us. They're a city club, so they're right outside Manhattan. And I asked them how's their summer going, and they're exploding. Even 3 years after COVID, they are taking on a lot of new families. So they have a lot of family programming going. So that from a golf club standpoint, I think they're doing really well. That model in a lot of our cities, we're seeing, just talking to the general managers out there, membership is still up, which is great for our clubs. And I think from us residential clubs down here in Florida, we're seeing a lot of younger demographic moving in. We have a lot of families here that are coming down from New York, New Jersey, like myself. I'm a 41-year-old dad of three, and we found it that be a lot better than living in Manhattan. We were looking for a better school system for our kids, and I think a lot of our members are in the same boat. And a lot of the members that we have here at Broken Sound, they're I would say between 50 and 59 moving down, and a lot of them still work. So we're trying to find out what kind of nighttime programming works now. So a lot more, just not just sports, looking at music and programming and really activating the club in different ways. So that, I think that is now making our clubs unique, and I think our industry as a whole, just now with so much out there on the internet, and all the stuff that you see out there with the tour going on, I think a lot of people get engaged with it. And I really enjoy the fact that companies like Top Golf and Pop Stroke are making golf more mainstream. And I think that's something that we see a lot more people with interest coming to our website. Pickleball has now exploded across the country, as everyone knows, but that's another area we're noticing new members who are not golfers. They're kind of getting into pickleball and tennis and really integrating into our communities that way. So I think 5-year plan, I'm really optimistic about this. I think a lot of people are enjoying the safety net and the sense of community, especially with the residential clubs, where you have a lot more than just golf and tennis and pool, where you're really finding new friends and families, and being able to celebrate that, and nice place to eat as well.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, we if it's taught us one thing, a lot of people can work from anywhere. So why not work someplace where it's beautiful, it's luxurious, it's Florida, right? I mean,
Exactly.
you guys have a great place to hang your hat.
Yeah, no, certainly. It's funny. I had a member that just came back for a family party, so she flew down and she said, "Greg, I'm up in the Hamptons for the summer," but she goes, "It's just my paradise." And I think that's just how you sum it up. A lot of people from here, they do head up north, but they come back down. We're getting a lot of members already asking us, where's the programming list for next year? What's coming down the pipeline? And it's not even the 4th of July yet. So, this 4th of July, just talking about numbers here, we're looking at 650 people for our barbecue. That's a large number for us on a Tuesday, right? But it's nice to see that many people are here in Florida full year round. So it's good to see that kind of numbers, when just 5 years ago, before COVID, you'd have 150 people or so. Now it's nearly quadrupled. So it's great to see that.
That's fantastic. I love sharing success stories, and that certainly is one. Greg, thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Great. Thanks, Rob. Looking forward to it.